Hello, you guys. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Today, we get to talk to poet and author Tanner Olson, Enneagram 3, about bringing your lament into the light. I am so delighted to have Tanner with us on this rainy time in Florida here. I'm recording in an evening when it's really rainy, and you'll also hear us talk about how we were both, oddly enough, recording the OG content here for you just a couple weeks ago when I was out of air conditioning. So I don't know if you heard me on other episodes when that was happening. It was like a weird fluke. And it was so ridiculously hot in, I think, both states. He was in Michigan, I was in Florida. And so that is funny that we've had a lot of weather for this episode. And I can't think of how more perfect that can be as we talk about poetry and hopefully going deep together as we help you to find those times in your life when you're struggling with more than just AC. But guys, Laura Ingalls Wilder could not make it in Florida without AC. So that was real. But also just, oh my gosh, all of the much deeper things that all of us have been through and maybe are going through right now. And we get to process some of that together today authentically with whatever vulnerability you want to bring to this. I invite you to take some deep breaths, to sit with your stuff with us today, and let Tanner help you as he has processed so much in his vulnerability and his walk through infertility and so many other things that he and his wife have just walked through in life as a couple with us today that we're going to hear about. And we also get the privilege of hearing one of his poems. And I can't recommend his book, Walk a Little Slower, more to you guys also, because I know we're all in this busy season of life. Many of us are going back to school, and we have had hopefully many blessings over the summer, but this is just a beautiful time to pause and reflect and say, there are hard things, and how can we work on them together when we get quiet, when we allow ourselves that emotional time to process, when we find that inner exile, if you're listening to our internal family systems Wednesdays, just what do you do when you get there, right? And so Tanner's giving us some ideas for that today. His work has been described as hopefully unique. It blends faith, humor, and curiosity, and he seeks to point readers and listeners toward the ultimate source of hope and love, Christ. So if you're a person of faith, you might love this even more, but we welcome all listeners here today because he has great tips for everybody. And I do share his faith, and I love that he brings that to the table as well, because it's obviously been a great source of comfort for me too. And I'm just so glad you're here with us. And even if you're just in that space, sometimes where you wrestle, I love his book and that he talks about those days too, where he's wrestling. And so I love that he's landed on faith and that he brings that in because we want you to come from that darkness into light. And so just allow yourself to learn to take some of his tips and tools today, and maybe even find yourself on his Instagram page, which is such a delight. In fact, 100,000 people follow it, so you may already be following, and maybe that's even why you pressed play today. Either way, I'm so glad you're here. We get to go to the depths together. You know, there's nothing I love more than that. And Wednesday, I'll bring you up to speed on some of our family things and just always dig in even in a different way with you on Wednesdays. But just thank you for joining us this week. And we're so happy to have you here. So make sure you grab all of his info out of the show notes, and let's dive in together with Tanner. Tanner, thank you so much for joining us for the Enneagram and Marriage podcast today. We're so happy to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little like talking. Sometimes usually I just talk about writing and poetry, but this is personal. This is more personal.
Yes, we're going personal, and it's a safe space. Everyone here loves the depths and being real. And I'm so glad before we got on, we were able to do that a little bit together. We're both glistening from heat and low air conditioners, right? So we're already sweating a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. And I was going to sweat anyways because I'm nervous to be on the podcast, but I think it's just with the lack of AC, that's really going to add to it.
Yes, yes. So hopefully you guys are listening from some cool destination, and so you can join us comfortably. But I will be very gentle since we know we don't want to add to that. But thank you. I love your poetry. I found you through your beautiful Written to Speak account. Tell
hmm
us a little bit about yourself. No, many of us know you, but some of us don't.
Yeah. My name is Tanner Olson, and I'm just a guy who just started writing and putting words out onto the internet about 10 years ago. I've released 4 books. I get to travel around the country, sharing poetry, telling stories, delivering messages of hope. I often travel with a musician, and we host these evenings of music and poetry. So you'll laugh, think, and you might even cry. You'll certainly glisten, but you might cry. But they're just, but I, it's just, this is what I get to do. This is my way of taking the things I have learned, the things I've come to believe to be true, and to share them in, I guess, the most real and authentic way that I can, that I know how to. And so it's kind of come through poetry and storytelling and in books.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you for doing so. And I know that you also shared on your Instagram and not singing, right? You were
Oh
like, singing is
gosh.
not my
Well,
thing.
I grew up, I always wanted to be in a band. Like I wanted to be the lead singer of like a punk rock band. Like I grew up in Florida. Like that was the
Mhm.
music in like 2008. That was the stuff. I was like,
Mhm.
that's what I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
I cannot sing. I can't sing. I can't play music. I don't have rhythm. I can hardly spell rhythm. And so like I was just left with just words. And so that's why we do poetry.
It's so cool when God opens a door and then closes one. I know it's funny too, but like it's so humbling in a good way to be like, I'm
Hmm.
not gifted here, but here
Yeah.
you are gifted. And that's why I'm so happy to have you. Words, obviously, like you said, have come to you over time, and you're like, God, this is my only gift to bring. And
Hmm.
we're grateful you're bringing it because you're bringing hope in a dark place. I know
Well,
I shared with
thanks.
my husband about your poetry that I said you have a way to bring people, whether they have a faith life. There's some of our
Hmm.
listeners who do, most of them do, but a few of them don't and are just here seeking. And I love how your work really allows everyone to feel loved. Is that one of your intentions?
Yeah, it is. And I can't just say God didn't just shut one door. He shut a lot of them. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just like one. I wanted to be in the NBA. Didn't
Mhm.
happen. I wanted to be in a band and all this. Anyways,
Yeah.
we won't get into that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things about with poetry and first of all, that's like a word that oftentimes can just push people away or put you into a box. And so the
Mhm.
kind of poetry that I write, I think a lot of academic poets, they would say, well, this really isn't poetry. It's really just this free
Mm.
verse
Yeah.
thought that just kind of came out. Um, but I my hope with writing is
Mm.
first of all to be honest, to
Mhm.
spread hope, but also to invite people into something more. I think
Mm.
poetry sometimes, or at least some poetry, has a way to kind of push people away or to hide a message. When you read through my words, like you're probably going to pick up on what I'm saying. It's
Mhm.
this invitation to help you continue to take the next step. Hopefully that you
Mhm.
feel seen, loved,
Yes.
appreciated when you
Mhm.
read it. It's not going to like I am not a guy who's going to go over your head. Like
Yeah.
God shut that door to academia as well for me.
Mhm.
So like that's
Mhm.
just my style is like I want to sit down, write something, slide it across the table, pat
Mhm.
the paper twice and say I wrote this for you. And
Mm.
hopefully it's helpful today. And if not, maybe tomorrow.
Oh, that's really neat. And that's just what comes across. So I know
Good.
people, hopefully, if they're not following yet, they're already now intrigued to like have to follow you on Instagram, which is in the show notes. But this is exactly the authentic experience that we all want. And yet I love that you already named bringing people forward, that you said,
Hmm.
it isn't just leaving them right there. Yes, you're authentically loved right where you are, but we also want to
Hmm.
continue to grow. And so
Yeah.
just doing that from first, that place of you're loved right where you are. And
Yeah.
you, and your beautiful book, Walk a Little Slower, you welcome us to do that slowly, which I appreciate, surely as a seven. But tell us a little bit about, just because it's so also wonderful to hear about your family, your wife, a little bit about your Enneagram types,
Yeah.
and yeah, just that.
Yeah, so my wife, let's start with her. We thought for a long time. So we discovered the Enneagram like the first year we were married. Like we
Mhm.
stumbled upon it somehow through a podcast from this. So we got married in 2016, the end of 2016. So we were like 2017, our first year of marriage.
Yeah.
We started diving more into the Enneagram. And
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
first, she thought she was a 6. At first,
Mhm.
I thought I was a 2, which is awesome because in the
Yeah.
book that we were reading, it was like Jesus is a 2. And so I felt really good for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, And so we thought that she was a six, thought I was a two, and then quickly kind of realized, okay, maybe I'm not a two, maybe I'm a
Mhm.
three, or
Mhm.
maybe I'm a four. Really, now I just say, like, I just live in the heart triad. Like,
Yeah.
if there is a feeling, I have felt it. If you're feeling something, I have felt it. Like,
Yeah.
I am really good at feeling. And my wife, Sarah,
Mm.
is wonderful, and we are so different.
Mm.
We are such different people. She is we thought she was a six, but like we kind of learned the last couple of years, I think that she's a five. One night she was like, "Hey, I think I'm a five," and I said, "All right, I trust you," because she's a thinker. So she
Yes.
was like, "I think this is really, um,
Mhm.
my type." But yeah, that's like a little bit about us. So like I am this like go, go, go person,
Yes.
which is why I wrote a book titled Walk a Little Slower, because one of the
Mhm.
big things for me, and this shows up a lot in my writing as
Mhm.
well, is like these little reminders, like things that I need to hold on to. So I wrote a
Mhm.
book titled it Walk a Little Slower because I need to
Mm.
slow down. And I have this constant reminder every
Yeah.
single day to walk a little slower.
Yeah.
And my wife, she's more careful with her energy. I will just go, 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 go. And she knows how to walk a little slower. She knows how to slow down. I am somebody who, when it comes to living, a lot of improv.
Mhm.
Like we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Sarah's like, well, let's have all of the knowledge before we even begin to think about taking the first next step. And so there's
Mm.
a lot of like me learning to say, all right, let's think about this. Because in
Mhm.
my personality, I'm somebody I begin sentences with I feel, and she begins
Mhm.
sentences with I think, or I know. And so that's kind of where we have to like help each other and teach each other and kind of meet in that middle.
That's really a good way of saying it, that you really are truly different in this way and
Hmm.
that you truly do bridge for one another. But there's pain in the first part sometimes, I'm sure,
Yeah.
when you're wondering, like, how come you don't understand me the way I'm feeling and thinking? And I mean, we all go through that here on this podcast in the
Hmm.
world. Any married couple knows that. But it sounds like you guys dialogue about that and do know your types. And I love that. How did you guys meet
Hmm.
each other with these differences?
Well, we seem to be having the same conversation or marriage meeting, you know,
Mhm.
every like the same one over and over again. We just kept missing each other. And so
Yeah.
it was like there's nothing wrong. Like we know we are in this, we're on each other's team, and we love each other. So then what is the thing that keeps getting in our way or
Mhm.
throwing us off track? And it was really just I mean, one of the great things about the Enneagram and the tool that it is how it helps you not only see the world that you're living in, but how you
Mhm.
approach the world as well. And so
Yeah.
we just kept approaching the same things or the way of living just a little bit differently. And so
Mhm.
it's just this like, and I think this is to kind of bring it to poetry as well. Poetry doesn't tell you what to think. It just
Mhm.
kind of invites you to show up in a different way or to
Mm.
receive something differently.
Mm.
Like when you read poetry, it's not like, and this is the way that it is. It is always, so what do you think about this? And I think with the
Mm.
Enneagram too, it's like, so what do you think about this? It's more of an invitation to live something healthier,
Mm.
um, and
Mm.
really and how to love the people around you better.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I love that, that you can liken it to poetry in that way, that both the two of you find yourselves in that dynamic of we love
Hmm.
each other a lot,
Yeah.
but we invite each other into our way of being. And of course, as you get better and better at it, it's less
Hmm.
pushing and grabbing and it's more gently bringing, it's taking deep breaths. That's so cool. And you were attracted to each other at the beginning, probably somewhat for these differences. How did you guys
Yeah.
meet initially when you were, even back in 2016 or before?
All right. Buckle up, okay?
Yes.
So so we met 2012. We were seniors in college, and I was in
Mhm.
school in Wisconsin. She was in
Mhm.
school in Nashville, and we had a mutual friend who had worked at a summer camp with Sarah, and I knew at college. And it was
Mm.
our senior year of college. She comes back from summer and says, "Tanner Olson, I met the girl that you're going to marry." And I
No.
was intrigued. I said, this is a strong sentence, and I need more about this." So this was like back in the day of Skype, right? We would Skype with
Gosh,
people, and
yes, yes.
Facebook was still like a thing that people enjoyed, and
Mhm.
so we were like, so we started Sarah and I started talking a little bit, And then she came to visit my friend at college. Really, she came to see me, and then we kind of hit it off, and that was senior year of college, and so we dated for a couple of months, and then, before I tell you the next thing, know how the story ends. Know the story ends with us getting married.
Okay.
So it was like right before college was about to end, like February, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
And she had a plan. She knew what she was going to do. And
Mhm.
so I freaked out. We broke up. We didn't talk for 3.5 years. And
Wow.
then one day, well, over a series of like
Yeah.
months of praying and thinking and reflecting, I reached back out to her to kind of apologize for how things ended. And then we just started talking. And that was September, October of 2015, and we were married December of 2016. So it's just
Oh.
kind of just moved pretty. But when it's when you know. And then
Mhm.
so we jumped in, and then life just hit us as we kept running.
Wow,
So
that is neat. I am so
yeah,
happy you found each other and that you
again.
slowed down. I know to know that, because us three sevens
Hmm.
and eights, for those listening, you guys know we move fast. And sometimes you're moving so fast and you miss something really important. And
Yeah.
so I love that you paused, that you reflected, that you prayed, and then you came back for what you'd missed.
Hmm.
That's literally what your work is all about. So of course that's how
Yeah.
your marriage started.
Yeah, a lot of it is I go ahead and then I have to
Yep.
backtrack and pick
Mhm.
up whatever I should have not have put down.
Same. And we all do that in
Yeah.
different ways, but yes, very
Yeah.
relatable. And I like how our
Hmm.
family balances us. I often talk with my clients about that too. Just it is so
Sure.
hard, but they make us better. John Gottman, the number one marriage
Yeah.
researcher, says that we make each other less crazy. But
Yeah.
then, of course, we have things after we get married that stress us out, many, many
Hmm.
joys, as well as the
Yeah.
depths and heartaches. Tell us a little bit about something that has been personal to you and hard. You talked with me about just infertility that's unexplained. I know so many deal with this. Thank you for being vulnerable about this.
Oh, of course. But I mean, I don't want to keep bringing it back to poetry, but I mean, that's part of it is like
Hmm.
if we aren't honest with each
Hmm.
other about the hard things, like
Hmm.
how are we gonna I don't know, help each other.
Yes.
I think when we found out, so we got married in 2016, and then in 2019, 2020, we were like, all right, let's try to start a family. And we had had a lot of friends who had kind of walked through the infertility road, and so we were, kind of like a
Mm.
little apprehensive, a little,
Yeah.
is this going to be something that we walk through as well? And
Yeah.
after about a year, we went to the doctor. They diagnosed us with unexplained infertility. And for those who don't know what unexplained infertility is, it's basically like the doctor says,
Mm.
we don't know. And when the
Mm.
doctor says you don't know, it's like, well, what did you go
Yeah.
to college for? You went to
Yes.
college to know,
Tell
and
me
you don't know.
something.
So yeah, so that was
Ah,
a little frustrating. And
yeah.
so there's a lot of wrestling that goes on.
Mm.
And it's not
Mm.
just it's not just the unexplained infertility,
Mm.
because with that then comes grief. It comes pivoting. It comes changing or rethinking the way you thought life was going to go or what life was going to look like. It is enduring as you see all of your friends receive the answers to the
Yeah.
prayers that you've been praying.
Yeah.
It is not being on social media because you can't get on social media anymore. It's all of these little things. And so for us to walk through that and to endure it, it was, I mean, it
Mm.
put a lot on us.
Yeah.
um, I mean, I wrote about it a
Mm.
lot and in a lot of different ways as well. And
Mm.
we found friends who also were walking through unexplained infertility. That's the thing about grief and
Yeah.
about pain is if you don't open up, if you don't talk about it, then you
Mhm.
can't find your people who are also
Mm.
walking through it and enduring it as well. And so when we were
Wow.
going through it, I guess we're still technically going through it.
Yeah.
Like as soon as we opened up to people, we had people who
Yeah.
we had no idea, and they walked through it, or they were still walking through it.
Mm.
And so the way that our story has continued to unfold is in 2022 we began doing all the paperwork for adoption. And
Mhm.
then last November, so November of 2023, we got a phone call on a Sunday morning that we had been chosen to be parents.
Wow.
Judah was born Sunday night, and he came home Tuesday
Oh,
morning. afternoon. So it was just like this real quick. I have this poem that'll be in one of my future books, talks about how, God is slow until he isn't. You cannot make God hurry up, but he is in the certain and slow. And he's slow until he isn't. And that our unexplained infertility is a huge part of our story. But so is adoption.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a lot. It's a lot to be a human being. It doesn't matter what number you
Mhm.
are,
Mhm.
1 through 10, whatever
Yeah.
number you are, 'cause,
Yeah.
some people are like, "What's your Enneagram number?" And they're like, "I'm a 10." I'm like,
Right,
okay,
right.
kind of rude. Oh, okay, you don't want to play the
Right.
game?
No
I didn't know you
vulnerability
were.
here. We're perfect.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're good. Okay. But so it's that
Mm.
whole, it's like doesn't matter what number you are. It's just hard to be a human being. Um,
Mhm.
but it gets easier when you go together.
That's a great line. And it's true. And when one falls down, the other helps them up. And
Hmm.
sometimes two are down and God helps us both up. What can you remind our audience of? Because thankfully, as we said, everyone deals with things, but you have been vulnerable. You have walked through it. You still walk through it sometimes, you said. Um,
Hmm.
what do you do sometimes for emotional release? Is this where poetry comes in for you? Is this other pieces? And of course, sometimes I hear from a three, um, I have to make sure my poetry is finished before I share it, or sometimes you share it
Hmm.
raw. Like, tell us about how you share your emotional journey.
Yeah, I think writing certainly is one of the things. But it's also like being outside and being around
Mm.
people and not being on social media.
Yeah.
And like stepping away from work and finding those healthy boundaries and all the
Mm.
things that I don't like to do because I love to work, I love to create, I love to like immerse myself
Yes.
in the projects that I have going on. And you already know that as a three, I have about
Hmm.
49 different things I'm working on right now.
Hmm.
But I love all that kind of stuff, but I have to retreat and be restored and renewed before I can kind of step back in and share the stuff. And so even
Hmm.
for me, like I'm one of those writers who like I'll share stuff that's pretty raw or unedited and then go back through and
Hmm.
share it again a different way when I feel
Ooh,
like it's kind
ooh,
of reached that point
I
or
like that.
this is like, there's time has passed between the last time I wrote or when I wrote this, and maybe I want to change a few lines because I don't know if you know this, writers, you're allowed to edit things again and again and then
Yeah.
share it again. So,
That's such a good permission giving for me as a seven. It's just beautiful to hear that. I know that from my professional writing, but hearing that
mhm.
just as an invitation, even on social media and every
Oh,
space you write. I do
mhm.
that with my personal poetry files, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's just neat for me to hear that reminder that the world isn't all going to criticize if you come back again and again, because we do have our
Mhm.
critics out there, but thankfully not that many. But there are, anyone who's on social media knows the critics who are like, you had a typo, and you're like, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for pointing that out. But did you like it? Did it connect with you? Did you enjoy it at all? Yeah. No,
Right, right.
yeah, I
Right.
think that, and that's one of the big things too, especially when you begin to talk kind of go below the surface and you begin
Hmm.
to talk about anything, whether that's, poetry or unexplained infertility. But you can talk about like, how like to find permission in those things, to grieve, to ask questions, to make changes, to wonder why. Like I think, the word permission is just it's extremely powerful because sometimes people think, well, this is the only way to do this or to live. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, that's hurtful to yourself. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of different ways to navigate this world.
Mm, yeah. And sometimes it's so like majority of people I feel that would follow accounts like yours that are very deep. They would really actually value the authenticity of you just sharing what you did. That yes,
Mhm.
naysayers aside, you know that there's growth people can have on the journey with you. And
Mhm.
I like how you've talked about that in your work as well. But I also love how you told us, sometimes it's coming away from it all into nature. People don't always hear that from somebody in the three space because of all the projects. And you're reminding us, my daughters and I loved your poem, Phone, where you talk
Oh
about
yeah.
putting the phone away for a whole day and how
Yeah.
amazing that felt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I spend a lot of time in my head and my heart as well. And I think as a writer, like you're paying attention, right? And so I am watching what other people are doing. I am learning from them. And even
Mm,
and my natural inclination is not to rest,
mm,
but my head and heart have talked a lot about all of these things, and we know that it's important to rest.
mm,
Also, my wife has told me, hey, you need to rest.
mm.
Also, one
Okay.
time I had a stomach ulcer and they were like, hey,
Mm,
you got to rest. And I said, okay, because those things hurt
yeah.
real bad and I don't want to have
Mm,
one again. So now I'm like, okay, I should drink less coffee and rest a little bit
yeah.
more. But I've also
Yeah.
found too, and this is maybe my way of tricking myself to into rest,
Mhm,
is that when I do retreat, when I do allow myself to step away into rest, I
mhm,
come back shocking, I know. I come back
mhm,
refreshed. I come
mm,
back thinking more clearly, and my
mhm,
work, which I really care about, is
mhm,
better. So I think that's
mm,
that's part of it too. It's like
mm,
rest is a gift. Like there's a
mm,
reason why God said, "Hey, do this. This is a good
mm,
thing. It's a good thing for you." Um,
mm.
and so I should believe in the one who instituted it.
Yes.
Hmm.
And that's beautiful that you're like, faith does find me. Sometimes it's coming through this hard teaching of
Hmm.
I didn't slow down. And so there's a consequence and I need to. Or
Yeah.
sometimes it's just coming through me realizing my father has allowed me to do this. I get to do this. I don't have to punish myself. We live in a very three culture overlay
Hmm.
anyway. And so that's an allowance that you have from a higher place than the USA or whatever country you're listening from. So, yeah, that's a great reminder for all of us. And in that emotional space, is that where you sometimes let out your lament, your grief? Because I know with infertility or other things you've gone through, the stomach ulcer, so many things I've gone through as well,
Hmm.
and our listeners, like what's something that you just either recommend or do when you're like, I also do this because I need this sometimes? Is it tears, music, anything that you can just echo for us?
Oh yeah, do it all.
Mm,
I think a lot of it is, I mean, do the healthy things, I should say.
yeah.
And
Yes.
that being like, I mean, being outside. So one of the things that I do, or at least I try to do most days, is so me and my dog, our dog Pancake, who's a golden doodle,
Mhm.
we walk, and I will pray out loud, or I will
Mm,
do the thing that I don't think is healthy, but in this case I do it anyways, is
mm,
I just read scripture on my phone, whether it's like a psalm, and
mm,
I'll just read it out loud. Like I'm just
mm.
walking
Yeah,
on up and down the street, and I am just
yeah.
people look out their windows like that's a crazy man with a cute dog.
Yeah.
But I mean to hear yourself
Mm,
pray out loud, and whether
mm,
that is while you're driving in the car,
mm,
in the
mm,
shower, like that's those are the places for me where I really where I pray is when I'm on walks, when I'm in the car.
mm,
If there's an opportunity to seek the silence and sit with it, yeah, that's
mm,
that's a good invitation. There doesn't always have to be noise or a podcast, unless it's this one. Like you can
mm,
always just
mm,
and accept the invitation and rest. And also for me, when I hear the things that, because I don't know what I feel or what I think really until I say it out loud. Like I have to
mm.
speak things out or
Yes.
write them out to be like, oh, this is how I feel. This is what's going on with me.
Good.
And so
Yes.
praying is a huge, is very helpful, as
Mhm.
I'm, wading through the darkness.
Mm, that's so common in a good way that so many people are like you and they need to verbally process. And I'm like that as well. And even if it's typing it out or speaking it out, so many of us to get to really clean thinking and feeling, we have to do that. And so
Hmm.
I love that you just gave everyone permission to look like a crazy person walking down the street with their pet or on
Oh
their
yeah.
own or with their phone. You're just reminding us we are on this side of heaven. It doesn't look perfect, and that's
Yeah.
okay, but
Hmm.
it's really beautiful for those who are actually seeking real freedom and to know what does it
Hmm.
look like to be healthier, to be more balanced. You're bringing in nature, you're bringing in some body work, you're bringing in the heart space, and you're
Hmm.
bringing in healthier thinking. So thank you for opening
Yeah.
that for us. And it sounds like you're also, inadvertently, I think, recommending to people poetic writing that doesn't have to have a certain cadence. It's okay if it doesn't look like somebody else's. Is that right too?
Oh yeah, like we're all out of school. You're not getting a
Mhm.
grade anymore,
Yeah.
So like just go for it. I mean, and when I so I get to
Mm,
visit a lot of schools and talk with students, and it is like, as your teachers instruct you to help you be able to do these things, there will be a day when you can just go free and you can just write
Mm.
however you want to write, say whatever it is
Mm.
that you need to say. And there's not going to be there's
Ah.
not going to be a grade. Now, if you write books and you put them on the internet, people will tell you they are terrible. But
Mhm. Mhm.
there will also be people who find them to be helpful as well.
Mhm.
And that's a different kind of conversation about finding your people.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
I really think, for me, it is taking the things that are inside and then bringing them into the light. And that is really what prayer
Mhm.
is, right? It is this conversation with God where you are saying, this is what I think, feel, what I'm thankful for, what I'm wondering about. You're
Mhm.
accepting the invitation to breathe and be and to speak in the
Mhm.
presence of the one who cares for you. And you are allowed to do
Mhm.
that. And you do not have to show up as somebody else.
Mhm.
We are all just
Mhm.
first-time human beings. We do not
Yeah.
have it all figured out, and that's totally okay. So just come and bring what you have and give what you have. And then that's
Mhm.
not with to take that thought and to apply it to writing. I know that what I write, what I share, what I create is not for everybody, but it is for
Mhm.
someone. And that
Mhm.
someone or those someones will not know about it unless you create it and share it.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's, showing up and giving what you have, knowing that what you
Mhm.
have might just be for somebody else.
Thank you. That is so inspiring. I can just feel listeners right now saying, yes, you just inspired me to share more authentically. And that's one of my, like, if we were to go to a totally different lens, Myers-Briggs, that is my
Hmm.
co-pilot. My parent is the authenticity driver. So I'm like, yes, thank
Yeah.
you for reminding me too.
Yeah.
Because that is absolutely true out there, guys, that nobody has everybody to like what they share. But as you
Yeah.
said, Tanner, you're reminding us bringing things out from the darkness into the light is the goal and into your way of blessing the world. And you've done that so beautifully. 100K followers, so many more who have read your
Oh,
book,
yeah. Going down
books.
every day. Yeah.
Oh, well, we want to hone. We want to find who your people are. So that's not
Yeah. That's,
necessarily bad.
yep. Yep.
But I just appreciate you so much. And I know you're growing and becoming more expansive, healthier. Your wife and you are helping each other to do that. Um, Maybe we could close if it's okay with you sharing one of your writings. I just feel such peace right now. And I know our audience would love that if that's all right.
Yeah, I would love to share a poem from my book, Walk a Little Slower. And it's a poem that is titled Walk a Little Slower. This is the one that I mostly often close most of my poetry
Mm.
shows with. So,
Oh, good.
um, yeah, so it goes like this. I think today I'll walk a little slower and breathe a little deeper. I'll leave my phone face down inside and give my eyes a rest to see beauty beyond a screen. I'll grab a light jacket so I can still feel the cold wind hold her hand until it gets sweaty, and I'll let go, but I'll never let go. I'll walk below in between shadows, cut through the field, cross the street when the car is clear. Today, I want to find myself beneath the limbs of the trees and later on below a few million stars, and maybe we'll see a dog or bump into old friends or both. And I'm not counting steps or miles, but I'm just walking because for now I can. And I don't know what the future holds, if my days left are long or short, or well, you get it. Maybe grief is around the corner or a missed call on my face down phone back inside. Maybe there's good news in my inbox or a miracle waiting in the welcome of next month. And in the morning, I'll sit a little longer and drink a little deeper. I'll watch the light make its way through the dark morning because the light, it always finds a way. And I'll remind myself life won't always look the way it does. Change is coming, and it might even be here. I'll remember the steps forward and the steps back that led me to where I am. And before I begin to move these feet once again, I will slowly breathe in grace and
Mm.
exhale peace, knowing that every piece of me is here to be. And whatever may become, well, for now, I'll walk a little slower and breathe a little deeper because right now I'm alive and everything is okay. It's not perfect, and that's okay. And that's what I'm learning to tell myself these days. Everything is okay. It's not perfect, and that's okay.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for letting me share it.
Guys, I know most of you are audio, but I'm just beaming because this is heart work. This is beautiful. You're gifting
Thank you.
us with this reminder that we all share this humanity and that
Hmm.
we're allowed to not know everything,
Yeah.
and yet we can be present. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm gonna
Yep.
be re-listening to that as needed.
Oh, cool. Well, it's also, you can also listen to it like on Spotify and stuff like that too. But yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's
Okay.
all out there. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for letting me share that poem. I really I enjoy sharing that because every time I read it, it's a
Mhm.
reminder to myself to slow down. And I
Mhm.
also have to remind myself before I read it to slow down so that I can read it. Just
Mhm.
most of life is just learning to slow down, or for some people, it's learning to speed up. But for me, it's slowing down, you know.
Yeah. Yes. I think just culturally, it's for most now. It is. I do think with the
Hmm.
dopamine with the phones, even my type 4 daughter, it's the same for her. Of course, some of us, like her and my nine, they can go slower, but they're still
Hmm.
sped up because of the culture. So, just all of us, whatever your type, I think this book is a gift to you. I got it on Kindle. I almost wished I got it on paperback, but I like that I have it on Kindle because I'm on screens a lot, and even on a screen, your work comes through. I'll validate that
Mm,
for you. Even on Instagram, it
nice.
comes through. So thank you for being out there so that where we are is where you're meeting us, similar to how your work says. You're not asking
Hmm.
for us to be perfect before we engage with your poetry or our
Sure.
growth process, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's life is already hard enough. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves. It's okay to slow down and not be first. And I like to be first. I like to win. I like those things. But those things are not, that's
Mhm.
not that's not living. Living is,
Mm.
I'm still trying to
Yeah.
figure out that part, but
Yeah.
it's not winning. It's not being first. It's enjoying the little things because we know that the little things are actually the big things.
Thank you. Yes. And for those of us like your wife and I in the safety group, we're thinking life is about, I've got to know everything. And so I
Hmm.
might be tempted, I've got to be perfect so that I can be focused, so that I can know everything. And
Yeah.
instead, it's just, I'm like, no, I can be invited into his poetry, even if I'm like in a moment at the grocery store and I want to flip open
Yeah.
my phone. And that's what I find. That's good. That's better than a
Yeah.
lot of the other things I can find right now. So, so thank
Yeah.
you for being, yeah,
Yeah.
just like right where we are. And like you're saying, like, it's not about winning. It's not about being perfect. It's just about being in community
Oh,
and
certainly.
being
Yeah.
present. So that's
Hmm.
what you bring too, is community.
Yeah.
So tell
Well,
our
that's good.
audience where they can find you for more of this. I'm sure they're very eager.
Yeah, if you go, so my website is writtentospeak.com. And I write on Substack. I post 2 or 3 times on
Mm.
Substack a week, which is mostly just like stories and the occasional poem. And then on Instagram, I post mostly poetry and prayers. And then if you're, want me to come read poetry at your church, your school, or wherever it may be, let me know, send me a message. I'm always looking for new places to share my poetry. And I promise it's not weird. Like I'm not one of those spoken word poets that yells or screams into the microphone. It's very much like this, very conversational.
Yeah, which is doable for me. So
Yeah.
thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because we
Yep.
need it, but it's like it has to be palatable. So thank you for making this
Oh,
safe
yeah.
and also very authentic. Tanner, we're
Hmm.
so grateful. And I just appreciate you sharing so much here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for just sharing in this time today. I am so hopeful that you feel like you have something to walk away with. And it might literally be walking a little slower. It might be that you're learning how to be more authentic and vulnerable and real and how to find your people. I hope you feel like this is a safe space for you. And we find out that not everyone is our type or, beyond type, much more just somebody who we can get along with. And that's okay as long as you're kind and respectful. But keep finding your own inner voice so that you can find out who your people are and keep on learning with us here. We love to have you along for the ride as you figure you out and your best gifts and ways of creating and bringing art. So, just like I said, make sure you take that one thing from today, whether it's a follow for Tanner or one of these practices he gave or getting his book. Everything's in the show notes for you. And so glad to have had this time. So proud of you for doing your work with me. All right, talk to you soon. Bye bye.